Welcome to this week's Q&A. We've had a great question this week from one of our viewers that's recently moved back to Australia, and he said, what will the opening of the Australian international border do for demand in housing? And the answer is, empirically, if we do have greater population growth in Australia due to international immigration, it will increase the demand for housing. However, as always, these things are not quite as straightforward as once we can look at from a macro level. We have to delve down into where these impacts are going to be felt, what sort of demographics, what type of dwelling types, etc. But let's also be clear about this. Because the government has decided that they're going to open the international border from the 21st of February, it doesn't mean that we're going to have a sudden deluge of tourists or people migrating to Australia, because bureaucracy tends to move slowly. So certainly if we look at the need for housing from the more permanent population, i.e. immigrants, whether that's skilled labour visas or others, students, etc., that are coming into Australia, it's going to take some time to develop and for impacts to be felt. Initially, we're going to see the uptake being, I think, quite modest, as people are still getting accustomed to travelling with all of the restrictions that various nations impose due to COVID, obviously, as we all know. So those things are really important. And we look at data. So if I look at other forms of migration within Australia, because it's such a large nation, if we look at interstate migration, when you've got one state losing 45,000 people over the year and another state gaining 46,000 people over the year, those sort of impacts on top of natural population growth due to births over deaths is going to have a far greater impact, I believe, in the short to medium term. So, I also like data that's relevant, and if we look at the recent intergenerational report that Commonwealth Government brought out, I'll stick, I think, with some of their projections where, in the year to June this year, we've got a very tepid rate of population growth driven by births, not by, obviously, international migration. And they don't see our rate of population growth from NOM, or net overseas migration, getting back to normal levels until at least 22, 23, or even, at least 23, 24, or even further out. Bearing in mind the government has come out and said that they would, I suppose, seek to turbocharge this, because Australia needs more skilled labour and unskilled labour. There are supply shortages being caused by this lack of manpower that the country requires. So that again may kick in, but I don't believe will play out for the course of 2022 in any meaningful manner. So really important to have a look at all of these underlying numbers and what that really is saying in terms of demand for housing in the various property markets around the country. I'll be covering this in far greater detail in tomorrow's quarterly review. So if you find this of interest, please let us know, and you can join our quarterly review tomorrow. Click like, and we'll see you again next week in next week's Q&A. I'm Andrew Unterweger from Wise Guru. All the very best to all our viewers all around the world. Great to see you.